the stone that shouldn't exist. History is written in stone, from cave walls to city ruins, from fossils to foundations. We build our understanding of the past layer by layer. But every so often we find something that doesn't fit. A hammer encased in 100-million-year-old rock. A human footprint beside a dinosaur's. Stone spheres, shoe prints, and carvings dated thousands or even millions of years before humans were supposed to exist. Are these misidentified objects, misdated layers, or are they evidence of an ancient world, lost to history and memory? This is the story of the secrets in stone, the out-of-place artifacts that may rewrite the human timeline. The London Hammer, a modern tool in an ancient rock. In 1936, a couple hiking near London, Texas, discovered a curious object embedded in a rock formation. It was a hammer, a small iron-headed tool with a wooden handle, nearly identical to those used in the 19th century. But here's the mystery. The hammer was encased in a concretion of Ordovician limestone, a formation estimated by some geologists to be over 100 million years old. The surrounding rock was said to be part of the Cretaceous formation, dated by some geologists to be between 100 and 400 million years old. That's long before humans, or even mammals, were supposed to exist. When the concretion was cracked open, part of the handle was turned to coal, and the iron head showed signs of pure smelting with no modern alloy contamination. If that dating is accurate, it raises profound questions. How could a manufactured object, an iron-headed hammer with a wooden handle, end up inside such ancient rock? That would mean someone, or something, capable of metallurgy existed long before humanity was believed to have evolved. The London Hammer isn't just a curiosity. It's remarkably well preserved. The head is made of nearly pure iron, about 96.6% iron, with traces of chlorine and sulfur. That purity is uncommon, especially for tools made before modern industrial processes. The wooden handle is partially petrified, transformed into coal-like material through long-term fossilization processes. The transition between the organic and mineral components is unusually clean, suggesting the hammer remained undisturbed for a very long time. Skeptics argue the hammer was likely from the 1800s and simply became embedded in a naturally forming concretion, hard but not necessarily ancient. But proponents claim the level of mineralization, the purity of the iron, and the geological context suggest a far older object, or at least a serious mystery. Either way, the London Hammer remains one of the most discussed, out-of-place artifacts, and a visual icon for those who believe in lost chapters of human technology. Footprints where none should exist. The Delk footprint, dinosaur and human together. In 2000, an unusual fossil slab was unearthed from the Paluxy River region near Glen Rose, Texas, already famous for its dinosaur trackways. This slab, later called the Delk print, shows a three-toed dinosaur track. That in itself isn't unusual. But the dinosaur print overlays what appears to be a human footprint, with 5 toes, a heel, and arch visible. CT scans performed on the rock by private researchers claim to show compression consistency, suggesting both tracks were made in the same layer of mud, not carved, not forged. Mainstream paleontologists remain highly skeptical. They argue the human-like print could be a natural erosion pattern or a misidentified track from another animal. But if the Delk print is genuine, it challenges the entire geological timeline, placing humans and dinosaurs in the same place at the same time, something mainstream science says is impossible. Either way, the Delk print is a physical artifact, real, visible, and studied, that forces serious questions about track misidentification, fossil layering, and the certainty of the evolutionary timeline. The trilobite footprint and the sandal in time. In the 1960s, amateur fossil hunter William Meister discovered a slab of Cambrian shale near Antelope Springs, Utah. It contained a well-preserved trilobite fossil, a marine arthropod believed to have gone extinct over 260 million years ago. But that is not what made the slab unique. What made the slab unique was what appeared to be a human shoe print, complete with heel and pressure arch, crushing the trilobite beneath it. Known as the Meister print, this discovery triggered outrage, debate, and eventual dismissal by mainstream scholars. Geologists who examined the find suggested that the footprint-like shape could be a geological oddity caused by natural erosion. Still, the image persisted, and it raised a deeper question. Why do human-like footprints continue to appear in fossil layers where they shouldn't? From Texas to Turkmenistan, from the Grand Canyon to South Africa, there have been dozens of footprint reports, some disputed, some dismissed, but none entirely erased from the public imagination. The next example, the Triassic shoe sole print. One of the most controversial and least discussed anomalies in the fossil record is a discovery commonly referred to as the Triassic shoe sole print. The specimen was reportedly found in Triassic age rock, layers dated to more than 200 million years old, a period long before mammals, let alone humans, are believed to have existed. What makes this imprint unusual is not simply its age, but its shape. The print displays a clear heel-to-toe outline, proportions consistent with a human foot, and in some interpretations, what appears to be a distinct sole edge. Features that are difficult to attribute to known Triassic animals. Unlike many disputed finds, the rock matrix itself was examined by professional geologists who identified the surrounding material as undisturbed Triassic sediment. Importantly, this was not presented as a hoax, nor dismissed as a casual curiosity. Geological professionals acknowledge the age of the rock, even while remaining cautious about the interpretation of the imprint itself. Here, the central issue becomes clear. The geological age of the rock is not in dispute. What is disputed is how to interpret the form preserved within it. Critics have suggested natural erosion, coincidence, or misidentification. Yet these explanations must account for why the imprint exhibits a recognizable heel-toe structure rather than the irregular shapes typically produced by erosion alone. This brings us to an important distinction. Preservation does not determine origin. Geology can tell us when a rock formed, but it does not automatically explain what created an impression within it. The Triassic shoe sole print does not prove the existence of humans in the Triassic period, but it does present a documented anomaly, one that conflicts with established timelines and therefore challenges us to respond carefully, not dismissively. In science, unresolved evidence does not demand belief, it demands documentation. And in that sense, the Triassic shoe sole print occupies a narrow but important place in the record, not as proof of a hidden history, but as a reminder that the past is sometimes more complex than our current models allow. Many fossil discoveries challenge the notion that humans evolved in isolation from extinct megafauna or ancient environments. The Laetoli footprints, Tanzania. 3.6 million-year-old hominid footprints show a modern human gait, heel strike, and arch, yet attributed to Australopithecus afarensis, not Homo sapiens. Could anatomically modern humans have existed much earlier than thought, or are our evolutionary models oversimplified? Then there is the Trachilos footprints. Trachilos versus Laetoli footprints. Among the most intriguing footprint discoveries of the last decade are those found at Trachilos on the island of Crete. Preserved in late Miocene sediments dated to approximately 5.7 million years ago, these impressions exhibit a flat sole, a pronounced heel, and 5 forward-facing toes, including a non-divergent big toe. When placed alongside the well-known footprints from Laetoli in Tanzania, dated to 3.66 million years ago, the resemblance is difficult to ignore. Laetoli is widely accepted as evidence of early hominins walking upright in Africa. Trachilos appears older and far outside the expected geographic range. Importantly, the original researchers did not claim modern humans, nor did they propose a rewritten evolutionary history. Instead, they acknowledged a genuine anomaly. Footprints with hominin-like morphology preserved in sediments older than any accepted African evidence. In this case, geology and morphology agree, but chronology and migration models do not. Trachilos does not overturn established science, but it does suggest that the early story of bipedal movement may be more complex than current frameworks allow. Now another well-documented footprint trail, White Sands. In New Mexico's White Sands National Park, human footprints preserved in ancient lakebed sediments tell a story that archaeology once resisted. Radiocarbon dating places these tracks at more than 20,000 years old, thousands of years earlier than long-accepted models of human migration into the Americas. The footprints are unambiguous. They show walking, turning, and interaction with now extinct megafauna such as mammoths and giant sloths. Initially controversial, the White Sands footprints are now widely accepted, not because beliefs changed, but because evidence accumulated. Their significance lies not in rewriting history overnight, but in demonstrating how careful documentation can gradually reshape even long-standing assumptions. White Sands reminds us that when traces are preserved clearly enough, the ground itself can become the archive. The White Sands footprints mark an important turning point. They show that evidence once considered impossible can, with enough documentation, become accepted history. But footprints are only one kind of trace. A footprint records movement where a body once walked. Tools record something different. Intention. If early people left tracks in ancient sediments, the next question becomes unavoidable. What else might they have left behind? This is where the story shifts, from traces made by footprints to traces made by behavior. And that shift leads us to a quiet site in the Mojave Desert, where fractured stone has raised one of the most persistent questions in North American archaeology: the Calico early man site. Footprints tell us where something walked. Tools tell us why it stopped. Stone tools, out of time. When tools appear too early, Calico. Early man site. In the Mojave Desert lies the Calico. Early man site, an excavation that has quietly challenged archaeological timelines for decades. Thousands of fractured stones were recovered from geological layers, dated to hundreds of thousands of years old, raising the possibility of an early human or pre-human presence in North America. The controversy does not center on the age of the sediments, which are well documented. It centers on interpretation. Some researchers identified flaking patterns and edge modification consistent with tool making, while others argued that natural pressure fracturing could produce similar results. Calico is important because it was not a fringe investigation. It was systematically excavated, thoroughly recorded, and debated within mainstream archaeology. No fraud was alleged, only uncertainty. Within a responsible classification framework, Calico remains documented but unresolved. It neither confirms early humans nor disappears from the record. It occupies a narrow but critical space where evidence exists, interpretation is difficult, and conclusions must remain restrained. Hueyatlaco Site, Mexico. The Hueyatlaco site in central Mexico became one of the most controversial archaeological locations of the 20th century. Stone tools were recovered from stratified deposit that some dating methods placed at approximately 250,000 years old. Archaeologists did not dispute the presence of the tools themselves. The disagreement centered on the dates. Such an age would place the site far outside accepted models for human occupation of the Americas. Faced with this conflict, the site was not resolved. It was sidelined. Hueyatlaco illustrates a persistent tension in archaeology. When stratigraphy, dating, and expectation diverge, evidence can remain documented, yet effectively excluded. The site does not rewrite history, but it shows how unresolved chronology can become a boundary beyond which inquiry rarely proceeds. The site remains controversial, but it illustrates how evidence that challenges established timelines can be buried twice, once in the earth and again in unresolved debate. A tool can be misplaced. A footprint can be misread. A burial is harder to explain away. A burial that shouldn't be there. Malachite Man. Among the most controversial discoveries ever reported is Malachite Man. Human skeletal remains found within hardened rock associated with Permian geological layers, dated to more than 250 million years ago. No credible researcher claims humans lived during the Permian period. The controversy lies elsewhere. Critics argue the remains must represent an intrusive burial introduced into much older rock. Intrusion is a valid hypothesis, but one that carries physical expectations. Such an event should leave evidence, disturbed bedding, fracture planes, infill sediment, or tool marks. In this case, reports describe intact lithified rock and mineral coatings formed through prolonged interaction with groundwater. Mineralization alone does not prove age, but it does suggest the remains were not recently placed. As with many anomalous finds, the bones are accepted, the context is contested. Within a disciplined framework, Malachite Man is best classified as unresolved. Not proof of an impossible past, but a reminder that geological contexts are sometimes more complex than our timelines assume. What unites cases like Calico and Malachite Man is not a shared conclusion, but a shared tension between physical evidence and accepted chronology. In both cases, the material itself is not dismissed. The debate turns on context, interpretation, and how much uncertainty science is willing to tolerate when evidence does not align neatly with expectation. These are not isolated stories. They echo a broader pattern seen in anomalous footprints, out-of-place artifacts, and deep time traces found around the world. None of these cases prove a hidden civilization or rewrite human history. But together, they highlight an important principle. When evidence conflicts with models, the responsible response is neither belief nor erasure, but careful documentation. Science advances not by eliminating anomalies, but by preserving them, until better tools, better data, or better questions allow us to understand what they truly represent. Next, a skull that shouldn't be there. The Calaveras skull, California, 1866. Found in a gold mine beneath Pliocene strata, 5 million years old. Allegedly a human skull suggesting human presence far earlier than accepted. Declared a hoax by some, but defenders claim the layer was undisturbed and the skull genuine. Footprints record movement. Tools record intention. Burials record presence. Each leaves a different kind of trace, but all face the same question. How do we interpret evidence that does not fit expectation? The Coso artifact, a machine inside a geoday. In 1961, 3 rock collectors near Olancha, California, were searching for geodes, rounded stones that sometimes contain crystal interiors. When one specimen was cut open, it revealed an unexpected object, a metallic cylinder surrounded by a ceramic-like material, bearing a resemblance to an electrical insulator. The object became known as the Coso artifact. Initial speculation suggested the surrounding material was ancient, with some estimates placing it far older than modern industrial history. Critics later argued the object was a 20th century spark plug, naturally encased within a mineral concretion over a much shorter time span. The difficulty lies not in identifying the object itself, but in establishing its provenance. The artifact passed through private hands, disappeared for years, and was never subjected to controlled, peer-reviewed analysis. Whether modern contamination or misinterpreted context, the Coso artifact illustrates a recurring pattern among so-called out-of-place artifacts. Accidental discovery, initial shock, disputed interpretation, and unresolved documentation. In such cases, ambiguity persists not because answers are impossible, but because critical evidence was never preserved in time. The Ottosdal spheres, machined objects in Precambrian rock. In South Africa's Ottosdal mines, miners uncovered hundreds of small spherical objects embedded in Precambrian rock formations, dated to approximately 2.8 billion years old. The spheres, typically 3 to 4 centimeters in diameter, often display distinct grooves encircling their midsections, features that some observers have described as unnaturally precise. Early speculation proposed the spheres were machined objects, raising extraordinary implications. Mainstream geologists, however, have offered a different explanation, that the spheres are natural hematite or pyrite concretions, formed through slow mineral deposition and pressure over immense spans of time. In this case, the geological explanation accounts for most observed features. The Ottosdal spheres are best understood not as evidence of ancient technology, but as an example of how natural processes can produce forms that appear intentional. Their inclusion here serves an important purpose: to demonstrate that not every anomaly survives closer examination, and that distinguishing between design and nature requires restraint as much as curiosity. Footprints mark where bodies moved, tools mark where intention appeared. But megaliths mark something else entirely: coordination across time, space, and landscape. Stone. Too large for history. Megaliths that defy modern engineering. One of the most striking categories of impossible stone involves megalithic structures. Massive stones placed with precision, often in eras where metallurgy and machinery supposedly didn't exist. Baalbek, Lebanon. In the ancient city of Baalbek, in present-day Lebanon, massive stone blocks form one of the largest and most perplexing construction platforms in the ancient world. Among them lies the so-called Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighing approximately 1,000 tons, one of the largest quarried stones ever cut by human hands. The stone was carved and partially moved, yet remains abandoned in the quarry. Nearby, the Temple of Jupiter rests on a foundation built from similarly enormous blocks, some weighing more than 800 tons each. Roman engineers are often credited with the temple above, but archaeological evidence suggests that the massive foundation stones beneath it may predate Roman construction. No known Roman cranes could lift blocks of this size intact, and even today, moving such stones would require specialized modern equipment. Baalbek raises a difficult but necessary question: not who built it, but whether later civilizations inherited and adapted structures whose original construction methods are no longer fully understood. Puma Punku, Bolivia. High on the Bolivian Altiplano, the site of Puma Punku presents a different kind of mystery, one of precision rather than mass. The site contains massive blocks of andesite, a volcanic stone harder than steel, with individual stones weighing up to 150 tons. Many of these blocks are shaped with near-perfect right angles, flat surfaces, inset grooves, and repeating geometric forms. Some appear modular, as if designed to interlock according to a standardized system. Puma Punku is generally dated to before 500 CE, a time when no metal tools capable of cutting andesite with such precision are known to have existed in the region. Archaeologists propose that stone hammering and prolonged abrasion could account for the shaping. Yet the consistency and repetition of the geometry continue to challenge assumptions about the tools, techniques, and organizational capacity available at the time. Puma Punku does not suggest lost technology, but it does suggest that ancient engineering capabilities may be underestimated. Sacsayhuamán, Peru. Overlooking the city of Cusco, the fortress complex of Sacsayhuamán is defined by immense polygonal stone walls built without mortar. Some individual stones weigh over 100 tons, yet fit together so precisely that a blade cannot be inserted between them. Each stone is uniquely shaped, with multiple angles and faces, yet interlocks seamlessly with its neighbors, an engineering approach that also provides remarkable earthquake resistance. The Inca are credited with constructing Sacsayhuamán, despite having no iron tools, no wheeled transport, and no written technical language. How such precision was achieved remains an open question. Some researchers propose long periods of trial and error shaping, while others suggest techniques or traditions no longer preserved in the historical record. Sacsayhuamán stands as a testament not to mystery, but to the sophistication of ancient stoneworking, achieved by methods still not fully replicated today. The Ica stones, Peru. In Peru, thousands of engraved stones known as the Ica stones depict scenes that appear anachronistic, humans alongside dinosaur-like creatures, complex surgeries, astronomical instruments, and advanced observation. The collection became famous in the mid-20th century, but also deeply controversial. Some stones were later admitted being modern fabrications, produced for tourists and collectors. This admission fundamentally complicates interpretation. Once forgery enters the record, it becomes difficult to separate authentic cultural artifacts from imitation. Yet the Ica stones remain notable not as proof of ancient, advanced knowledge, but as a case study in contamination, how genuine traditions misunderstood symbolism, or even older originals can be obscured once replication and profit intervene. Whether authentic, copied, or invented, the Ica stones demonstrate a recurring problem in anomalous archaeology. When evidence becomes mixed with fabrication, clarity may be lost permanently. Their value lies not in what they prove, but in what they caution against. Whether authentic, copied, or fabricated, the Ica stones demonstrate how extraordinary claims, once mixed with forgery, become nearly impossible to disentangle from genuine tradition. The Ica stones remind us how fragile the archaeological record can be. When objects are removed from context, copied, or commercialized, clarity erodes and interpretation becomes uncertain. But some evidence cannot be isolated, forged, or easily moved. Entire landscapes remain exactly where they were placed. Stone circles, alignments, and observatories across the world were not discovered in collections or private hands. They were built into the ground itself, fixed to horizons, solstices, and stars. These structures do not depict knowledge. They embody it. To understand them, we must shift scale. From individual stones and objects to systems that span geography, generations, and the sky itself. And when we do, a different question emerges. How did ancient cultures, separated by oceans and millennia, arrive at such precise and consistent relationships with the cosmos? aligning the Earth to the sky. Global stone alignments. Who built the grid? Across the world, megalithic structures, especially stone circles and observatories, show astronomical knowledge far more precise than assumed for their time. Nabta Playa, Egypt. In the Nubian desert of southern Egypt lies one of the oldest known astronomical sites in the world, Nabta Playa. Long before the rise of dynastic Egypt, prehistoric peoples arranged stone circles and alignments around a seasonal lakebed. Radiocarbon dating places the site at approximately 6000 BCE, more than 1,000 years older than Stonehenge. Several of these stones align with solar events, including the summer solstice, while others appear to reference prominent stars associated with later Egyptian cosmology. Nabta Playa demonstrates that systematic observation of the sky did not begin with monumental civilizations, but with much earlier cultures capable of tracking time, seasons, and celestial cycles with surprising accuracy. It challenges the assumption that complex astronomical knowledge required writing, metallurgy, or centralized states. Stonehenge, England. Perhaps the most famous stone monument in the world, Stonehenge stands as a testament to long-term planning, coordination, and astronomical awareness. Constructed in multiple phases beginning around 3000 BCE, the site is aligned with the summer solstice sunrise and the winter solstice sunset, events that would have structured seasonal movement, ritual, and survival. Stonehenge is not an isolated structure. It forms part of a broader ritual landscape that includes processional avenues, burial mounds, and satellite circles, suggesting a shared cultural emphasis on celestial cycles and sacred geography. The monument's precision was achieved without metal tools or written plans, relying instead on accumulated knowledge passed across generations. Stonehenge does not require lost technology to be impressive, but it does require us to reconsider the intellectual capabilities of its builders. Goseck Circle, Germany. In central Germany, the Goseck Circle offers a quieter but equally revealing example of prehistoric astronomy. Dating to approximately 4800 BCE, Goseck consists of concentric circular ditches and wooden palisades aligned with the winter solstice sunrise and sunset. Archaeologists widely regard it as the oldest known solar observatory in Europe. Unlike later stone monuments, Goseck was constructed primarily of wood, materials that decay, leaving only traces in the soil. Its survival in the archaeological record is therefore exceptional. Goseck reminds us that what we see today may represent only a fraction of what once existed, and that many ancient observatories may have vanished entirely. Across continents and millennia, ancient cultures marked the sky with stone, wood, and earth. These sites were not random. They were placed deliberately, aligned to solstices, equinoxes, and celestial cycles that governed seasons, migration, and survival. No single monument proves a global civilization, but taken together, these alignments reveal something deeper, a shared human impulse to measure time, anchor meaning to the heavens, and encode knowledge in the landscape itself. Whatever their builders believed, they understood one thing clearly. The sky was not distant. It was central. What modern science says, and what it doesn't. Mainstream archaeology addresses these anomalies in several ways. Misidentification or forgery, reworked stratigraphy or contamination, human error in dating or interpretation. In many cases, those explanations are entirely valid, but in others, researchers who present anomalous finds report suppression of publications, denial of permits, loss of tenure or academic status. These patterns reveal not just a scientific issue, but a cultural one. Our story of the past is fragile. It depends on consensus, but that consensus may be incomplete. Out-of-place artifacts may not all be real, but if even one is real, our timeline needs to change. The flood as global reset. From Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, from Polynesia to Plato, nearly every ancient culture shares a memory of a great flood. It isn't just a coincidence. These stories carry striking similarities. A corrupt or declining world destroyed by water. A chosen survivor, Noah, Utnapishtim, Manu, Deucalion. The survival of select knowledge, animals, or families. The founding of a new civilization after the waters recede. But could this be more than myth? Geological evidence shows that around 11,600 years ago, the world underwent a rapid shift in climate. The Younger Dryas period ended abruptly, and sea levels rose dramatically due to glacial melt. Between 12,000 and 8,000 years ago, over 10 million square miles of coastal land were lost to the oceans. Whole regions, ideal for early human settlement, would now lie beneath hundreds of feet of water. We now know Doggerland, between Britain and Europe, was once inhabited. The Sundaland Shelf, Indonesia, was a massive subcontinent. Coastal India, Japan, and the Caribbean all hold submerged ruins and shorelines. Is it possible that many ancient megaliths and anomalies we see today are the last visible remnants of a larger global civilization? Were the secrets lost to the sea, preserved only in stone? Stone as technology. We tend to think of stone as primitive, but what if stonework, especially precision stonework, was the apex of ancient knowledge, not its beginning? Consider. Stone is electrically stable, acoustically resonant, and incredibly durable. It can encode not only physical structures, but potentially resonant or energetic information. Ancient builders seem to know how to quarry, move, and shape multi-ton stones, how to align structures with the sun, stars, and magnetic lines, how to create resonance chambers, as found in the Great Pyramid's King's Chamber and Mayan tombs. Could this point to a forgotten science? One where acoustics, astronomy, and geometry converged. Some researchers believe that megalithic structures acted like energy amplifiers, tuning devices, calendars, or signal beacons. Even the Nazca lines, often considered primitive art, take on new meaning when viewed as star maps, land-based navigation grids, or sky-facing messages meant for gods or travelers above. Ancient tech, modern paradoxes. A growing number of researchers suggest that stone carving technology may have exceeded our current assumptions in tool hardness. Sites like Puma Punku or the Osirian in Egypt show stone types shaped with machine-like precision, requiring tools harder than diamond or ultrasonic shaping. Lost alloys. Reports from ancient India describe Vajra weapons, mercury-based propulsion, and iron pillars that resist rust, like the famous Iron Pillar of Delhi. Geopolymer concretes. Some claim the Giza pyramids were cast, not carved, using reagglomerated stone slurry, a theory with growing chemical support. If even one of these technologies existed, the timeline of innovation shifts dramatically. It would mean the ancients didn't simply invent by trial and error, they inherited knowledge, possibly from an earlier epoch. Stone as memory, culture as echo. The people of the past were not primitive. Their myths, rituals, and calendars often encode survival data. Stories passed down not just for religion, but for remembering what happened before. For example, the Hopi speak of 3 previous worlds destroyed by fire, ice, and flood. The Maori have oral histories of land swallowed by the ocean. The Aboriginal Australians remember sunken coastlines, stars shifting, and long-lost ancestors who built the earth. Some of these oral traditions preserve real geological events, later confirmed by science. In many cases, these stories were attached to stones. standing stones as boundary markers, carved stones as astronomical guides, buried stones at sacred sites as records for the future. The ancients may have used stone the way we use hard drives, not just to store material culture, but to preserve cosmic memory. The gap between curiosity and dogma. The biggest obstacle to exploring these ideas isn't technology, it's mindset. Academia demands rigorous standards. That's good, but overcorrection can lead to dismissing strange finds before they're studied, branding them as pseudo-archaeology without review. We risk losing the ability to ask unorthodox questions, the freedom to challenge assumptions, the chance to discover what doesn't fit instead of seeing out-of-place artifacts as threats. We should treat them as invitations to rethink, revisit, and reimagine the story of civilization. Because even if 99 anomalies are misinterpreted, the one that's real could change everything. When modern tech meets ancient stone, in the last 2 decades, tools like LiDAR, ground-penetrating radar, 3D photogrammetry, and AI-enhanced pattern recognition have begun transforming how we see the ancient world. These tools have revealed things once hidden, or worse, misinterpreted. LiDAR, light detection and ranging, used in Mesoamerica to scan jungle-covered terrain, revealed massive pre-Columbian cities in Guatemala and Honduras, previously believed to be uninhabited rainforest. Dozens of square miles of roadways, pyramids, and canals now rewrite our understanding of Maya urban complexity. Ground-penetrating radar, GPR, confirmed buried chambers beneath the Sphinx enclosure and throughout Giza. In Turkey, found multi-layered settlements beneath Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. Detected possible megalithic foundations offshore near India and Japan. AI and photogrammetry, used to recreate 3D scans of eroded stelae and worn inscriptions. Found geometric patterning at Puma Punku previously unseen by the human eye. Begun assisting in decoding symbolic structures at sites like Teotihuacan and Easter Island. These aren't fringe tools. They're used by national archaeological services, space agencies, and academic institutions. As we overlay modern satellite data with ancient alignments, the coincidences pile up. Sacred sites that align across continents, stone markers that mimic star constellations, road systems that suggest lost coordination. Are we uncovering a prehistoric global grid, a forgotten geodetic system? Or is this merely a pattern-seeking mind at play? Science is just beginning to catch up with what the stones have already recorded. The cognitive shift. Ancient people weren't primitive. For centuries, the mainstream view held that history was linear, primitive to advanced, stone to steel, superstition to science. But more and more discoveries are showing that ancient people had deep understanding of time, geometry, and sky cycles, tracked planetary movements, precession, and eclipses, created temples and stone calendars that mirrored cosmic rhythms. Examples: Göbekli Tepe, 9600 BCE, appears to encode stellar alignments, particularly with Sirius and the constellation of Scorpio. The Great Pyramid encodes the ratio of Earth's circumference to its polar radius. Stone spheres in Costa Rica, once dismissed as natural or decorative, now appear to track equinox shadows and form solar grids. Rather than primitive, these cultures may have been hyper-observant and tuned to cycles modern humans ignore. New discoveries since 2000. Let's examine some recent finds that add weight to the argument that our history is missing something. 1. Karahan Tepe, Turkey, sister site to Göbekli Tepe, features stone totems, ritual pits, and sacred enclosures. Suggests a cultural network stretching across thousands of years before writing. Raises the question, who taught these hunter-gatherers sacred geometry? 2. The Yonaguni Monument, Japan. Submerged rock formation off Okinawa. Features 90-degree angles, platforms, stairs, and walls. Debate continues, natural formation or sunken city. If artificial, it must have been built before sea levels rose over 10,000 years ago. 3. Gunung Padang, Indonesia. A hill once thought to be natural. Ground scans revealed layered structures beneath the visible stones. Radiocarbon dating suggests some construction phases predate 10,000 BCE. If confirmed, this would be the oldest known pyramid, twice the age of the pyramids of Giza. Each of these discoveries nudges the curtain back. They imply that what we call prehistory may in fact be deep history, simply unwritten, not untrue. A world lost, not just forgotten. If you lose your library, your language, and your cities, history calls you primitive. But what if you once built pyramids, charted the stars, and tracked equinoxes in carved stone? What if your memory was drowned by flood, buried by ice, or burned by fire? Many ancient traditions speak of cycles, civilizations that rise, fall, and return. Humanity reborn, but smaller each time. Technology lost, retained only in myth. From Atlantis to the Sumerian flood to Hopi Fourth World prophecy, stone remains the one thing that endures. Stone doesn't lie. Stone doesn't forget. And stone doesn't care who believes it. It simply waits to be found. What these stones really tell us: we don't need every out-of-place artifact to be authentic to recognize the pattern. A hammer in ancient rock, a footprint beside a dinosaur track, a sphere that predates human metallurgy, a pyramid older than writing. These aren't just curiosities, they are cracks in the story we've been told. And when you add ancient myths that align across continents, sacred geometries embedded in megaliths, legends of floods, resets, and golden ages, a question begins to echo louder than the rest. What are we missing? We cling to linear timelines because they're simple. We favor consensus because it's comforting. But the world, the real tangled ancient world, rarely behaves in a straight line. It erodes, it collapses, it preserves fragments in stone, and from those fragments, we must reassemble a greater mystery. History isn't finished. One of the most dangerous beliefs in modern culture is the idea that we've figured it all out, that ancient people were universally primitive, myth equals fiction, and stone holds no secrets we haven't already decoded. But ask yourself, if a human-like print was found in stone, would we believe it? If an ancient machine were buried in a cave, would we allow it to change our textbooks? If someone left us a message in the alignment of pyramids, stone spheres, or glyphs, would we still hear it? Discovery hasn't ended. It's just that the next discoveries will break things, ideas, models, and maybe even pride. But that's okay, because truth, like stone, outlasts fashion. The cosmic scale of memory. Let's zoom out. Planet Earth is over 4.5 billion years old. Modern humans have been around for maybe 300,000. What if our current civilization isn't the first with cities, astronomy, and technology? What if it's not even the second? Carl Sagan once said, "Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence." If a culture rose 50,000 years ago, built mostly with organic tools, and fell due to cataclysm, it might leave nothing except a few out-of-place artifacts in stone, a tool, a track, a temple, and even those could be buried, misread, or dismissed. The stones we now see could be the only survivors of a past we've forgotten. They don't speak in paragraphs, they speak in puzzles, and it is up to us to listen. Closing. Stone doesn't rot, it doesn't burn, it doesn't forget, and when it bears a mark, A tool line, a footprint, a symbol. We owe it a second glance. What we call history may only be the last chapter of a far longer book, one written in earthquakes and floods, and footnotes left behind in fossilized clay. The hammer that shouldn't be there, the pyramid buried in jungle, the story that doesn't begin where we thought it did. These are the secrets in stone, and their message is not simple. It is humbling. We are not the first to walk here, and if we listen closely, we may not be the last to learn from what they left behind. Produced and researched by NextPath Studio. For more analyses, subscribe and explore the mysteries that challenge what we think we know.